This is the Financial Beat, helping you hit all the right notes in your financial plan. So sit back as we strike up the band. The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler starts now.
Welcome to the Financial Beat, ladies and gentlemen. Logan Sadler is here. Logan Sadler, of course, the VP and Chief Investment Officer at Regary Financial. And as always, today we're going to talk about getting you to and through retirement. My name is Ryan Stutz. Always a pleasure to hang out with Logan for a while on this show. And Logan, I know it's a busy time of the year, but how have you been?
Yeah, I've been great. And like you said, definitely a busy time of the year for many of us out there as the holidays are fastly approaching. But other than that, I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Not bad at all. Just been really busy, and I guess that's a whole lot better than the alternative, not having anything to do. But we're going to talk about the holidays here coming up and a lot of other things. But first of all, let me give you Logan Sadler's contact information. 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-7526. That's your number to call if you'd like to get in touch with Regary Financial. A couple of convenient offices in Southern California, Hemet and also Redlands. And the number one more time is 888-823-PLAN. You call that number and you can get a discovery visit going. And it's not going to cost you anything and not going to carry with it any kind of obligation at all. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on today. But Logan, here we are in the midst of the holiday season and things are cranking up. Everybody's feeling festive, and this is the time of the year where people are nicer to each other than they are other times of the year.
We try at least, right?
I wish people would just, be as nice to each other all the time as they are during the Christmas season. And I was just sitting and thinking about this a little while ago and thinking it might be cool to talk about Christmas treats today. What we might be able to learn about financial planning from some iconic Christmas treats. And I know you'll know these as I get into them here. But first of all, fruitcake. You're always going to see fruitcake floating around at Christmas time. They're popular to give as gifts, but not so popular to get as a gift. It seems like almost nobody wants to get or eat a fruitcake, and yet they're everywhere. You don't even think about them any other time of the year. What's something out there in the financial world that seems to be everywhere but isn't exactly loved? Maybe something that people like to sell, but almost nobody is happy with after they buy it.
Yeah, great transition there. Right when you had said that, I thought of a couple things right off the bat there. And you're right. Fruitcake's one of those things where I'll eat it, but it's never my favorite, right?
Yeah.
But in the financial world, like you said, some items or products out there that I see quite a bit that are not necessarily loved by many once they get them. Typically, first thing I thought of was variable life insurance or variable annuities. Mm-hmm. That was the first thing I thought of. And the main reason why is there's a lot of brokerages and firms out there that do like to utilize these products to sell. Some of them pay pretty well on the commission side and things like that to the advisor who sells them. And they do have some of the benefits that seem pretty shiny and exciting when you buy them. However, most of the time when people do end up purchasing those or using them in the plan, they find out if they were going to use life insurance, there might have been a cheaper or maybe a more secure option. And same when you buy a variable annuity, sometimes people go, well, that was great, but I could have just bought a fixed annuity or a fixed index annuity and been a little bit more safer. Or if I wanted to keep money in the market, I probably would have been better off just leaving money in the market, right? So those definitely have those pros and cons where you see them in a lot of people's accounts. I think, I don't want to say everybody I meet with, but quite a few of the people that I meet with, especially when they're newer clients coming on board, and we're going through our review process to look at their overall financial situation. A lot of the times we're like, hey, I got this old account or I got this old investment. Take a look at it, right? And they're like, well, I've never really been happy with it, or I don't understand it, or a lot of those types of things. And that's the first thing I think of would be any type of variable insurance.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move on to another one here and get away from fruitcake. And I'm going to get as far away from fruitcake as I possibly can. How about gingerbread houses? First of all, do you put together gingerbread houses at your house?
No, I mean, I've done them when I was a kid, but it's been some years ago since the last time I've done that.
Yeah. Gingerbread houses can be fun to put together. I'm told we don't do it either. Yeah. And they look really cool when the project is finished. I have been the judge a couple of times at a gingerbread house making contest at this at our local hotel here.
Okay.
And it's really cool to see those things, but it kind of turns into a no-win situation. If you leave it sitting out for too long, it's going to not be any good to eat because the gingerbread will get stale and kind of gross. But if you eat it right away, then you don't get to enjoy it as a decoration. It's a classic you can't have your cake and eat it too situation. What is something in the financial world that creates a quandary like this? Something where you want two different benefits or outcomes, but you have to choose one or the other.
Yeah, that's a great point. I would say, first off, I thought of was like risk versus reward, right? The first thing I thought of is a lot of clients out there are very timid or very scared of risk, right? They don't like the idea. If they put money into an investment, they do not like the idea of it going down. So they don't want to lose any money or very little. However, they want it to grow a lot, right? So one of the things we'll ask clients in our discovery meeting, Ron, is I'll ask them, hey, what is a reasonable rate of return for you? Some clients will say 2%, some say 5%, some say 12%, right? And the next question I ask after that is, well, okay, based off your dollar amount, if you had $1 million or 500 or whatever your amount is, let's use $1 million for easy math. And okay, you have $1 million, right? What would happen if the market went down before? What would be that amount it went down before you hit your panic button? And they're like, oh, I don't want to lose more than 5%, right? And it's like, okay, so you want to make 12, but you don't want to lose more than 5. So right off the bat, I think anybody that, even if you don't know much about investments, would agree a 12% return is extraordinary high, right? Even 5%, 6%, 7%, those are pretty decent rates of return, right? So you would know, most people know that you typically have to take a little bit more risk if you want to see those types of returns. If you are accepting that type of return, you got to be willing to accept that type of risk, right? Those things kind of run together, and you can't really have one without the other, right? You can't get those higher double-digit returns typically without taking more risk. Now, that's something I think a lot of people quandar with in their financial plan, and a lot of that is my job as the advisor, is to really help orchestrate the plan and the investments to making sure that we're taking the right amounts of risk, but also explaining the trade-off of one versus the other.
Yeah, and, gingerbread houses, maybe it's for you, maybe it's not, but why don't you talk to Logan Sadler about it and maybe get him to help you prepare a gingerbread house for your house for decorations.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll do your financial gingerbread house, not your real gingerbread house. You probably wouldn't like how that comes out.
Good idea to clarify that. Well, and you ever watch? You and your wife ever watch Hallmark movies?
No, I've seen them. I'd be lying if I said I haven't, but I don't watch a lot of them.
Yeah, I think they make about 35 or 40 of them every year at Christmas time. It's crazy,
What's funny is whenever I see the Hallmark Channel on, it's never really the same movie, so I figured they're making quite a bit of them.
Yeah, I mean, and then they replay the old ones as well, but my goodness, I mean, it's a lot. And they always talk about cocoa on that show.
Oh, yeah.
You want hot cocoa, I refer to it as hot chocolate, but,
I do too.
Whether you call it cocoa or hot chocolate, but nobody wants room temperature hot chocolate.
No.
Hot chocolate is supposed to be hot, but you have to be careful because if you make it too hot, you're going to burn your mouth and take all the fun out of drinking it. You need the temperature to be just right. What's something in the financial world out there that's great when you have the right balance, but bad news if you have too much of it or too little of it?
Yeah, great point. And you're right. It's funny because I'm the same with hot chocolate and coffee, right? I think everybody likes those hot. If you're going to drink cold, it's a different story, right? But that room temp, that awkward temperature, nobody likes that, right? Yeah. Now, in the financial world, a couple things that I would say where you want to have that right balance. I'm going to talk about risk tolerance again, Ron. If you're looking at your financial world, you want to make sure that you do not have too much on the table as far as risk goes, but also you don't want to have no cards on the table, right? Because I've seen some clients where they've came in, they're like, hey, you know what? Me and my friend, I've seen this exact scenario, so I'm telling a real story now. I wasn't going to, but I'm transitioning. So
okay, can't wait.
So, for example, I had some clients that worked at the same company, and of course, we don't share any information. But one of the clients had said, "Hey, you know what? I have $1 million invested with Gregary Financial. Go talk to them, and they'll tell you how to manage your money and what you should be doing with it." Right? Yeah. Well, the client that came in only had like $400,000 or $500,000. Right? They've been working there relatively about the same time period. They both put away close to the same amount. And the funny part is he was like, hey, you know what? I know my friend has $1 million here. He's told me and right? How come I don't have close to that amount, right? And the funny part was, of course, I can't share information, but I actually looked at his investments, and I couldn't tell him what his other friend was in with their current plan. But what I was able to show him in his plan is majority of his money was in bonds and cash, right? So his other friend or other coworkers or other people typically have some money in some of the global equity funds or some of the target date funds that might have a little bit more of their money in the market. Now, I can't see, by looking at the statement, I can't really see how long they've been in that fund, right? I could just typically see a snapshot of where they're currently in. And I had asked him, I said, do you move this around very frequently or whatnot? He had been in that same type of balanced approach for about 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. And so, for example, when you look at what the markets have done over the last 10 years, the growth that we've seen across the board has been, just amazing, right? I mean, record breaking in some cases. And the problem with that is he was so afraid to lose any money that he didn't have any in there, right? So his other friends that have been working around the same time as he had and putting away close to the same amount had, if not double more than what he had, right? And a lot of that because he didn't have the right balance of risk. Now, if I would have talked to him and said, hey, you know what, are you comfortable with some money being in the market or more at risk? The answer probably would have been yes, right? He just didn't want all of it, and he really didn't know how to balance it out. And so in that scenario, you're looking at, hundreds of thousands of dollars that were left on the table over his working career that, if just done differently or even just talk with an advisor, could have probably educated him a little bit further to help him feel a little bit more comfortable and have that balanced approach where it wasn't too hot and it wasn't too cold.
It's kind of a balancing act, and I wish that this person had come to you and talked about all this stuff, and things could have ended up very differently for him. One more holiday treat here, and this is something that I never think about until the holiday season gets here, and I'm guessing it's that way for a lot of other folks too. Eggnog. Do you actually like eggnog?
All right, nobody get mad at me, but I don't. I'm not a big eggnog person. I mean, I'll drink pretty much any type of holiday festivity, but eggnog just doesn't ring home for me.
Well, eggnog is polarizing, like a lot of things in this country right now. And some people really like it. Some people think it's gross. Almost nobody is neutral on eggnog.
Yeah, very, very divisive.
Yeah. What's something in the financial world that people have really strong opinions on? Some people love it. Some people think it's awful. Can you think of anything in the financial world that falls into that category?
Yeah, I apologize. I'm not getting very broad on this conversation, but I'm going to go back to annuities, because we do use a lot of different types of annuities for some of our clients, depending on what type of goals and things they have with their plan. But it is funny where I'll have clients come in, they're like, "Hey, Logan, you know what? I have $1 million and I'm ready to put some money away for investing and for my retirement. I'm not really comfortable with the market. I would like some in there, but I'm looking for something that's just where I could park some money." And you know what? A friend of mine has a pension that pays him every month, pays him $2,000 a month for as long as he lives. And I always just wanted something like that, but it's such a bummer I can't get anything like that, right?
Yeah.
And then they go, but by the way, I hate annuities, right? And so I always go, well, you basically, with a portion of your money, just described what a lot of the income annuities out there do, where you basically park a chunk of your money. I always say I'm very dry when I explain these things, but I'll say, essentially, you're putting your money there. You're giving it to an insurance company in this case. Will it make a little money along the way? Probably. And will it pay you out a lifetime income? Yes. It pays you out as long as you leave your money there. You could take a joint payout so it lasts as long as you and your spouse live. And they guarantee you that payout forever, just like a pension. And some of the newer fixed index annuities out there actually have some inflation protection on them, where actually the payment can continue to go up even if you run out of money. Right? So it's one of those things where for a lot of people out there, they're looking for that guaranteed income stream. And that is a very, very good spot for some people to put them. I don't think everybody should have an annuity, but I do think for some people out there that are looking for safety and income, it's pretty hard to argue against some of the other asset classes out there. Because again, I love dividend paying stocks, right? Those are great. However, the dividends aren't guaranteed, right? I love real estate. Real estate income's not guaranteed. I love bonds, right? Bond income's not guaranteed. CDs, interest rates aren't guaranteed, right? So when you look at the annuity, it's one of the only options out there for a lifetime income stream that you know is never going to change. And so I think for a lot of people out there, they're so stuck on, well, I've heard so many bad things about annuities, and there's a lot of pros and cons out there on different types of annuities, but it's all about finding the right one for what it is you're trying to do. And again, you might not need one, but for a lot of people out there, the main goal is, right, we see some of our friends out there with pensions, and we're like, you know what, I've saved pretty well. I wouldn't mind dropping a little bit of money in one of those things to give me some income. and pair it together with the rest of my financial plan. And that's exactly what we do here at Regary Financial. As we talk about each week on the show, our job is, as a financial advisor, is not to tell you what the best investment is today, right? Really what our job is to really sit down and help build out a strategic plan for you and your spouse, you and your family, to help get you to and through retirement. And we have all these different resources and tools and strategies that we can implement, but it's really all about finding what is right for you and making sure we're able to surround you with the right team to help get you to and through retirement.
That is a lot of knowledge coming out of a silly conversation about fruitcake, gingerbread houses, hot chocolate, and eggnog. Thank you, Logan, for expounding on all that. Yeah. Well, if you'd like to have a conversation with Logan Sadler, here's your number, 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-7526. Easy way to remember it is by using the word plan, because it's something we all need. 888-823-PLAN. Remember that Logan Sadler is the VP and Chief Investment Officer at Regary Financial, serving you in Southern California, wherever you are. Again, 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make it happen. Logan works with 3 different generations of client families at Regary, and many of those folks have been depending on Regary for getting them to and through retirement for a very long time. More than 25 years, some of those folks. And Logan Sadler, of course, meets new folks every single week. And something he offers to everybody who listens to the show. Conversation, a discovery meeting, a quick conversation about what's going on in your life and what you want to achieve in your retirement and how you can get there. That's where it all starts. Remember, when you call and get a discovery meeting going, it's not going to cost you a penny, not going to carry with it any kind of obligation. 888-823-PLAN. I'm Ron Stutz, along with Logan Sadler, and we'll have more coming up in just a moment. We appreciate your being here on the Financial Beat.
You're listening to The Financial Beat, the show that makes sure your financial plan has the perfect pitch.
We're back now with more of The Financial Beat, and the beat goes on, as they say. Logan Sadler at Regary Financial is here. I'm Ron Stutz. And remember that at Regary Financial, they have terrific partnerships with local CPAs, attorneys, real estate agents, mortgage lenders, Medicare specialists. It's kind of a one-stop shop for giving you well-rounded guidance in all things financial. For you as a client, you can arrange to have a discovery meeting with no cost involved at all. No cost and no obligation. The number to call to make that happen is 888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-PLAN. Call that number today. Leave your name and your phone number. You will get a call back first part of the week from the good folks at Regary, and you can arrange to have a conversation with Logan Sadler, same person you hear on this show every single week, and it's not going to cost you a thing, as I said. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call. Hey, I don't know about, construction. Are you good with your hands? Are you good at building things?
Yeah, what's funny, a lot of people don't know this about me, but I actually was a union carpenter for about 4 years.
Really?
Yeah, so I have a little experience with my hands. I would not call myself a total craftsman by any means, but I could do a little bit here and there.
Yeah. I am just the opposite, man. I can't build anything. I'm good for about 2 light bulbs a month, according to my wife.
Hey, there you go.
But
yeah, that's funny. There
are a lot of people out there who are good at building things and good at fixing things, and a lot of people take on a renovation at their house. And they'd say, I want to maybe do it myself. I want to refurbish the kitchen, come up with new countertops and new cabinets and all that kind of stuff. But then sometimes you hire these things out to an expert. I was wondering today, before we went on the air, what can we learn about financial planning from the process of doing a home renovation? Mm-hmm. First of all, there's something called the contractor's discount, and everybody should know about that and how it works. Explain it for us, if you would.
Yeah, for example, some people are pretty amazed when you're painting a few rooms, you're in your house, and maybe you're doing it yourself because you're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to try to save some money, right? I think that's why a lot of the the do-it-yourselfer investments, the do-it-yourselfer improvements are out there, right? Where you're trying to save a little bit of money, trying to patch up the house, paint some rooms, whatever it might be, and you're really doing it again to save money, right? But I think it's pretty amazing when you actually compare the amount of time you put into it and the money that you put into it. It might have not been that much more expensive to hire somebody, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of that's because when you hire a contractor, a lot of times people aren't aware that they get things, sometimes material or different types of tools and things like that they already have. You don't have to buy. So you're saving yourself actually a little bit of money sometimes when you pay the professional to do it, right? When you look at it's, again, the labor might be what you're paying for. However, they might have a better discount on paint. They might already have all the paint brushes. They might already have all the materials, the tarping, all of that, plus the 8 to 10 hours it took you versus the 2 hours it took them, right?
Yeah.
And so let's be honest, right? We've all been in that boat. And it's one of those things where a lot of people think they're doing a lot of things to save themselves money. However, it might actually be more costly in the long run. And the same comes to the investment world, right? Many people are trying to do a lot of the financial planning themselves because they go, you know what? I don't want to pay an advisor 1% or 1.5% or 5% or whatever the heck it is you pay, right? Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest thing out there is because a lot of people say that they're trying to save themselves money. And the truth of it is there's a lot of people out there. I'm super honest. And one thing I'll say is there's a lot of people out there that do that very well. They manage their investments. They do things very well, just like some people that do some things around the house very well. However, the majority of people out there, when you look around, they are spending more time and more money and maybe making more costly mistakes because they don't have access to certain products, right? Maybe they're using expensive mutual funds instead of low-cost stock portfolios or ETFs. Like, for example, Ron, I had a client the other day where I reviewed their portfolio because they were doing everything themselves, and they said, I don't want to pay an advisor any money, and then they got to a point where they're like, you know what, the market's all over the place. I might want to get a second opinion, right?
Yeah.
Well, the funny part was they were all in very, very expensive mutual funds that were costing them over 1% of internal expense ratios, which are basically extra fees attached to the account, right?
And they had no idea, right?
No idea, right? And it took them hours and hours and hours of research and, in their words, uncomfortable feeling in their stomach while they were making these buys and sells and things like that, when they could have just probably paid an advisor that 1% and probably had a much better experience knowing they had a professional and someone to rely on. And what a lot of people aren't aware of is what the financial advisor does for them should be a lot more than just managing their investments, right? You should be able to put together a plan, looking at your income, looking at your tax situation, and really providing more overall value than just simply painting a few walls or buying a few investments.
You're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, and we're talking about renovation projects here and how that may apply to the financial world. I know a lot of people who have had houses built and a lot of people who have had major renovations at their homes. Maybe they want to add on a bedroom or a porch or whatever the case may be. And a real pain and kind of a stressful situation is you got along the way, you have to have certain things inspected. And sometimes it can be really stressful if you're worried about, getting this inspected before you can move on to the next step. But how passing inspection, how does that apply in the financial world?
Yeah, definitely. I think the inspector, in this case, let's call them the CPA, right? So when you look in the financial world, there's a lot of other CPAs or tax professionals that can kind of act as the inspector, right? You might be doing a lot of different tax planning or even not even thinking you're doing tax planning, but just buying and selling and taking money out of investments. At the end of the year, guess what? You get a stack of 1099s. You go to the CPA or your tax professional, and they go, Ron, what the heck are you doing, right? And you go, what do you mean? I bought some Microsoft stock, and then I sold it, or I did this, and then I did that, right? And so they're able to tell you and go, well, that didn't make a whole lot of sense. You paid double in taxes than if you would have just done this, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different scenarios I could use where a good CPA or tax professional can really act as kind of an extra inspector in there to make sure that you're minimizing those mistakes. And a lot of us know those tax mistakes can be very costly. Just like a lot of those home inspections can really save you a lot of money by knowing that the job was done correctly. And that is exactly what a good tax professional and good tax planning should be able to do in your retirement plan.
Okay, moving on to the next topic here. When it comes to renovation projects and financial planning and everything else, how about specialization? If you had a sore foot, you wouldn't want to go to a heart surgeon, and the same thing applies in the financial world. You want somebody who specializes in what you're interested in, and the same is true with construction. Tie those two things together, if you would.
Yeah, a perfect example, right? I mean, if I'm having my house rewired, I want a licensed electrician, right?
Yeah.
I don't want my electrician doing my roof, right? Not that they probably don't know how to do it. However, that's not their specialty. They probably can get it done, but it's not going to be the same, right?
Yeah.
So like you said, just if I'm having heart surgery, I don't want my foot doctor to do it, right? There's different specialties for different reasons, and in the financial world, it is exactly the same. I have so many clients like, oh, I have a financial professional, right? And they're like, well, he only sells insurance, right? Ma'am, you have 5 different accounts. All 5 of them are only insurance. To me, it sounds like you have an insurance person that is probably just utilizing insurance products for your investments. And you're getting ready to retire. You're getting ready to enter a whole new area where you might need a lot more broad scope financial planning than what you're currently getting, right? And same on the other side. I've seen a lot of clients where they're like, I'm getting ready to retire, got $500,000. It's all in the market. And I'm thinking, do I really need that much in the market? But I don't know if I just want bonds. I think I want some more customization. And that's where having a financial advisor that specializes in what time frame you're in. There's advisors out there that specialize in getting out of debt, right? A lot of you out there that are having trouble paying off things and trying to get your financial budget in order, there is advisors out there that specialize in that. A lot of you out there that are younger and trying to accumulate assets and really learn a lot about getting started, there's certain advisors out there that specialize in that, right? And then there's people like us where we specialize in retirement planning. A lot of our clients are approaching retirement. They're typically 55 years or older, and they're getting to a point in their life where they're saying, you know what? I got to worry about Medicare. I got Social Security. I have a bunch of money in IRAs and 401ks that's all taxable, and I'm trying to figure out how my tax situation is going to look over the next 10, 15, 20 years. And I need to make sure I have a proper estate plan set up, right? So you want to make sure you're working with a financial professional that actually specializes in retirement planning and making sure they have all the tools and services that are going to be able to be needed throughout that time frame, and not just be able to sell you a stock or a bond or whatever it might be, but being able to orchestrate that whole thing and put all those puzzle pieces together to get you to and through retirement. And that's where I think finding the right specialist for where you're at in your time frame is extremely important.
It's so important to talk to the right person, and that's why it's essential you have a conversation with Logan Sadler. You're listening to this show because you're concerned about getting to and through retirement. That's what we're all about here. And Logan Sadler can be reached by calling 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-7526. Call that number for Regary Financial. Leave your name and your phone number. You will get a call back, and then you can have a conversation with Logan Sadler. He's not going to put you off on anybody else. You will have an actual conversation with Logan, and then he can point you in the right direction. You may decide that you don't want to pursue it any further, and that's fine too, because there's no obligation. And again, that conversation is not going to cost you a penny. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make it happen. Logan Sadler is at Regary Financial, a firm that's been around forever. Logan Sadler, of course, has been doing this for a very long time, has a lot of satisfied clients, and can certainly talk with you, and you can decide if you'd like to move on from there. One more time, that number, 888-823-PLAN. Ron Stutz here along with Logan Sadler, and we'll have more coming up in just a moment. You're listening to The Financial Beat.
1, 2, 3, 4!
When musicians are performing, they typically need someone to count them into each song. Without that count in, the musicians might be out of sync and the song could fall apart. It's similar to your financial plan. All of your investments must be in sync, working towards your financial goals. Keep listening to The Financial Beat and learn how to make sure that your investments are playing together perfectly.
Welcome back to more of The Financial Beat. Logan Sadler is on the radio, but you can also hear Logan Sadler and his wit and wisdom on YouTube, and you can listen to podcasts if you've missed any of our past shows. And first of all, those YouTube videos, Logan, what are they talking about, and how can folks access them?
Yeah, you can head over to YouTube, type in The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, and we upload a video there each week for you to check out. And a lot of them are different topics or maybe some tips and tricks of some things for retirement planning. So we do things on Social Security, investments, annuities, a lot of different things that many of you might have questions on when it pertains to retirement planning. So head over there to the YouTube, click subscribe, follow along. And again, let us know in some comments some other videos you might like us to do in the future.
You know, I mentioned podcasts just a moment ago, and, a lot of people may want to catch up on shows that they perhaps missed. Maybe they were out of town or just weren't able to listen one particular week. How do you get to those podcasts?
Yeah, the nice part is they're actually uploaded on the YouTube channel as well, so you could check them out on the YouTube channel. But you could also go over to podcast, wherever that might be for you, maybe Apple Music, Amazon, Spotify, wherever it might be. Type in The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, and like Ron said, there's over 100 episodes now for you to go over there and check out at your convenience.
I guess we've been doing this for a long time now.
Yeah, we are rocking and rolling.
888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. Your number to call if you'd like to call and get a conversation going with Logan Sadler. It's a discovery meeting, won't cost you anything, won't obligate you to do anything at all. You know, one of the things we talk about a lot on this show is the red zone, and we're going to get to that in just a second. But I wanted to mention something here that I read earlier this week and kind of blew my mind. The best-selling car of all time is the Toyota Corolla, with more than 44 million cars sold around the world.
Well, that's pretty funny because I have had a Toyota Corolla at one point in my life. And so I get why it's the most popular is that they're typically pretty inexpensive. Mm-hmm. They typically last a long time, and they typically get pretty good gas mileage, right? So those are three things that a lot of people typically like in a car, especially if you're like maybe just getting started and you need a cheaper car, or maybe if you're commuting a lot, those things can be rather reliable. I had a joke the other day where, you know, a lot of older generations, you had like, you know, they kept their 57 Chevy truck, right? Or they kept, you know, those classic cars. And I always joke like the Toyota Tacomas of like the early 2000s or late 90s. Those are going to be like those versions of those Chevy trucks because a lot of those older Toyota cars are going to be around for a very long time.
I got one that may blow your mind. I once had a Corvair.
Really? There you go.
I mean, they have made
Don't hear that
They have made those in decades and decades.
Yeah, you don't hear that every day.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, let's talk about something that we mentioned a lot on the show, the red zone, the financial red zone specifically. For the folks out there listening, we're not just talking about football here, although there are comparisons, and I guess that's how it got its name. What exactly is the financial red zone?
Yeah, so for a lot of you out there, how we typically explain the financial red zone is, and we do have a full YouTube video on this as well too, but how we do the financial red zone is we typically say that's the last 10 years before retiring, right? And then typically the first 5 to 10 years after retiring. So it's technically close to a 20-year span, maybe 15-year span where things are very, very critical, right? And the reason why we put so much emphasis on it here at our firm is that's typically when a lot of clients need to be working with a financial advisor, and there's a lot of different obstacles and decisions that you should be doing during that time frame, right? The last 10 years before you retire, there's so many different things that are coming up and things that are changing, and then typically right when you retire, you talk about a whole new world being thrown at you, and it's something you really need to plan for, and that's why we think the financial red zone is a very, very crucial time for a lot of people, and I'm sure we'll dive deeper into it.
If you're a football fan, you know that it's important to make all the right decisions when you get inside the red zone. Your opponent, you're about to score. You don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to fumble at the goal line or throw an interception in the end zone, that kind of thing. And the same thing applies in your finances. Why do people need to pay such close attention once they get to the financial red zone and this point in their life?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of great speakers and a lot of great motivational people out there, right? What is the one thing they always talk about when you're young? You have time, right? You have time to invest in yourself. You have time to put money away. You have time to take risk. You have time to let things kind of play out, so to speak. The one thing you really don't have much of, you still have a lot of, but not as much as you did before, is time, right? When you are in your last 10 years or 5 years before working, remember 2008 when we had that big market correction, right?
Oh, yeah.
Many people remember that and remember it very well. And many of you remember your accounts going down. A lot of you that are maybe 50 or 60 years old right now, you were probably 40 or 50 years old around that time frame. And guess what? You were like, you know what? I'm not retiring for 10 or 15 years. I'm not worried about it, right? Hopefully my account comes back. You probably didn't like that time frame. You probably weren't super happy and said, "Yeah, I'm down 30%. This is great," right? But you probably were a little bit more optimistic about things coming back before you retired.
Sure.
All of that mindset you had then would be gone now, right? If you had a big market correction, which again, these things happen. Do we know how big they're going to be? No. Do we know how long they're going to last? No. Do we know they happen? Yes, right? So one thing we need to be prepared for is if we went into one of those big economical downturns, they could take, anywhere from 3 to 5 years to recover, right? And so if we're getting ready to retire, when our account goes down 40%, it takes us 5 years just to get back up to where we had before. We're going to be in a little bit of a pickle, right, when we get ready to retire and we realize that we had 5 years of really no growth on our account. So we need to be able to be ready as we get closer to retirement, making sure we are really either scaling back risk or making sure that we're really looking at how our overall assets are categorized and making sure that we're making those proper adjustments before we get too close to the red zone.
It's so important to avoid those big mistakes at that stage in your life. What are some of the mistakes that you see people making in the red zone?
Yeah, I think there's a few things, right? Two most important that pop out to me are taking too much risk, right? People that are investing like they're still in their 20s and 30s and 40s, and now they're 40, 50, or 60, right? Yeah. And typically in that 50 and 60-year-old time frame, you still want money. You still want to make some money, right? You still want to have some money in the market or in more aggressive investments. However, most of the time you want to have taken some chips off the table, right? And what I always say is a lot of our clients aren't even aware of what type of risk they have, right? We do a thing called a Riskalyze report for every one of our clients that comes on board, and we do it annually for each of our clients that's with us, where we look at here's how you're invested, and here's your overall risk of each of these investments. If we did go through a market correction, here's how much your account could probably go down. Here's how much your account can probably go up, right? It's good to understand the good and the bad and not just talk about the good. That way we know exactly where, you know what, if we went through a recession or a big economical downturn, we're going to be okay, right? We're situated correctly. Or guess what? We are not, right? So we want to make sure we're identifying the risk level that we currently have and making sure it's not too much and making sure we're not taking any risk at all, right? You kind of want to be in that middle zone. And the other thing I would say that's the biggest thing I see that it just is time and time again where I'll see it wrong when clients come in is they don't have a plan. Right? Yeah. Hey, Logan, I'm retiring next year. Hey, Logan, I'm retiring in 2 years. Perfect. Let's sit down and look at your financial plan. They're like, well, you know, I have a 401k. I was thinking about taking a little bit of money out of there. I think I'm going to take Social Security at 62 or maybe 65. I don't really know. I'm not really sure how I'm going to cover my health care, right? Not ready for Medicare yet. And I'm not really sure how taxes are going to work on all this stuff, right? Yeah. So what does that all amount to, right? They don't have a plan, right? And I think having a plan where you know where your income is going to come from, how long it's going to last, what your investments are going to look like, understanding your tax plan, all of those types of legacy and estate planning concerns that need to be addressed, making sure you have that overall plan put together. And I think that's where a lot of people really struggle is not having those two things done.
You want to talk about all those things in your life? Well, then call 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN. You can have a discovery meeting with Logan Sadler. It won't cost you anything and won't carry with it any kind of obligation. We're talking about the financial red zone. And let's talk about your clients for a second here, not individually, but for those who have been paying attention and being proactive, people who already are on board with Ruggieri Financial, why is retirement planning a little bit easier once they get to the financial red zone?
Yeah, there's quite a few reasons, right? I would say you probably have a retirement age in mind, right? When clients are getting closer, when you're 40, you're like, yeah, I have no idea when I'm going to retire, right? I'm going to have to work till I die, or I'm retiring next year, and that's unrealistic, right? So I would say a lot of the times people have more of an idea, right? They're like, you know what, Logan, I'm 60. I'm going to go till 64, and then I'm going to pull the plug, right? If I can. Let's see what that looks like, right? And they typically have more of a date in mind. Maybe it's 5 years out, maybe it's 2 years out, but they typically have a little bit more of an age in mind. The next thing is your retirement income streams like Social Security and pension are much, much easier to predict when you're closer, right? When you're 3 to 5 years out, you can get a pretty good idea of what your income is going to look like from those income streams. When you're 30 and trying to predict your Social Security, it's rather hard to see what that's going to look like, right? So I think as you get closer, those types of things are really easier to pencil in and get really an idea of what that's going to look like. And you're more likely to be out of debt, or at least be able to really lighten the load and see the end of the tunnel, so to speak, on that debt train, right? Maybe getting your house close to paid off. Maybe you don't have as many things like cars or boats or things like that you're paying on. So you typically have more of an idea of what your expenses look like, as well as maybe the kids and things like that have moved out of the house. So you got rid of those bills that we know can be expensive. And then the next thing is you probably have a clear picture of what you want to do with your life once you retire, or maybe a little bit more of an idea than you did 5 or 10 years ago, right? And a lot of my job when I sit down with our clients, yes, we go over all the tactical stuff, all the risk proposals, the investments, the income planning. I have a lot of really fun charts I like to go over. However, we also want to make sure we are identifying what we're going to do in retirement, right? Having a clear picture of what we're wanting to do in our retirement once we retire, to making sure we're retiring to a meaningful retirement and making sure that you're able to enjoy it and not just sitting around the couch watching the news all day, but being able to do the things you want to do, right? And I think a lot of what we do with our clients, especially around that financial red zone, that's why on this show we always say, most of our clients that we deal with, when you're calling in to this phone number, a lot of people are typically over the ages of 55, and they're typically approaching retirement. Maybe you have just started, but they're looking for an advisor and a team to really help put all these pieces together in their retirement plan and making sure that they have a plan that is actually customized for them and not just built, but also built to last.
Well, I'll tell you, most folks know that if they've dealt with Regary Financial before, we're not just talking about Logan Sadler here. He has an outstanding team of folks there already willing and able to help you get to and through retirement. And if you want to talk about these things, then arrange to get a discovery meeting. That's where it all starts. Call 888-823-PLAN. That's 888-823-7526. You can have a conversation with Logan to begin, and then you can decide to move on from there if you like. If not, hey, that's cool too. There's no obligation involved at all. So why would you not check it out? 888-823-PLAN. I think you'll enjoy meeting Logan Sadler. He will enjoy getting to know you, and then you can find out if you'd like to pursue it further. It's totally up to you. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make it happen. Logan Sadler, Regary Financial, 2 offices, Hemet and Redlands. And, of course, folks come from all over Southern California. And really, they got folks all over the country and some folks in other parts of the world who depend on them to help them get to and through retirement. One more time, and the number, 888-823-PLAN. Ron Stutz here along with Logan Sadler, and there's more coming up on the Financial Beat right around the corner.
It's getting to know you time.
Okay, you're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. Ron Stutz here. Off-the-wall question here for you today, Logan. Who is the most overrated celebrity? Got any ideas on that?
Well, the first person that comes to mind, hopefully I don't get any hate on this, because I typically like everybody, and I don't dislike this person at all, but I just don't get the hype. Tom Cruise.
Oh, yeah.
He's been in a lot of movies. I get it. He had a good run, in the early 80s and late 90s and all that stuff. But I don't think he's like that great of an actor. However, I know he does his own stunts and stuff, but I just have never got like the big hype behind him.
Yeah.
But hey, might just be my opinion. I do like some of his movies, but I just don't get that like extreme superstar level status when I watch it.
Yeah. One thing that strikes me is when watching a lot of TV shows and movies, it's like some actors just play themselves every time. It seems like they just got on different clothes, or they were in some kind of a different job in the movie, or whatever the case may be, but they're just playing themselves.
It's very true. Like one of my favorite actors, but I can't really tell you why he's my favorite. But I love Sylvester Stallone. But it's funny, like you said, he plays the same character almost in every movie, right? I mean, for the last 45 years or whatever, it's been the same character. But like you said, it's funny how a lot of them is just the same over and over again. But hey, sometimes you throw a different shirt on and a different director. Maybe we'll keep watching.
It's a good gig if you can get it. And I'll say one more thing about when it comes to celebrities that I can't figure out. Let's start with Kardashians. I mean, I've never watched one of their shows.
They're not even celebrities anymore, right? They're just like superstar status, and I don't. I'm with you on that. I don't quite understand.
Famous for being famous, I guess. Yep. I don't get it.
That's a good way to put it.
We got more coming up just a moment. You're listening to the Financial Beat.
Do you ever find yourself skipping through countless songs trying to find the perfect one? Yeah, we've been there too, and know it can be frustrating. Much like skipping through the countless advertisements from other financial advisors, it can seem like there's so much misinformation. But here on the Financial Beat, you can rest assured we're providing you with the best information possible. So don't push skip on this show, because we have some important information coming up.
One more time, we have more information here on the Financial Beat. We appreciate your taking the time to listen today. Logan Sadler is on the air. Go tell everybody you know, because I'm sure he's going to have some pearls of wisdom between now and the end of the show here. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call for Gary Financial. 888-823-PLAN. Logan, of course, is the Vice President and Chief Investment Officer. My name is Ron Stutz. Always a pleasure for me to hang out with Logan every single week, and he has helped so many people get to and through retirement and can help you as well. But you got to check it out by calling 888-823-PLAN. You can get a discovery visit, kind of a getting to know you session, cost-free, obligation-free, 888-823-PLAN. Next segment of our show is called the mailbag. Sometimes we refer to it as the request line because people get their questions to Logan in a variety of ways. First question today is from Deb in Riverside. And Deb says, is final expense insurance worth buying? I'm a single woman in my late 60s. I have plenty of money to last for my lifetime, but I just don't want anyone to have to pay out of pocket to get me buried.
Yeah. Great question, Deb, right? The one thing I always talk about with final expense insurance is, it is nice to have a nice burial plan, right? I mean, I think it's one of those things where if it makes things easy, a lot of those typically are pretty cost effective if done correctly. And I do think there is some benefit to them. A lot of people, if you have a lot of money and things like that, there probably would have been able to be done anyway. However, it is nice having a nice little burial plan. I have a lot of our wealthier clients that do have some of those set up, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it does make things a little bit easier and smoother. So I would say you're not wasting money or anything like that. And again, you could send it over to me. I'd be glad to take a look at it. But those things are typically pretty cost effective, and they typically have inside them kind of a lot of what your wishes are and things like that to make sure things just are done and smooth and over with. So I think those are sometimes a good thing to add into the plan, but it's not a must, but I do think they're beneficial.
Well, as Logan said, if you want him to take a look at it, if you have one of those, well, then call the number 888-823-PLAN, and you can arrange to have that happen. Next question is from Tess in Loma Linda. Tess says, I have a lot of anxiety watching my investments bounce up and down in the market. It didn't bother me when I was 40, but it bothers me a lot more now at 55 because I'm closer to retirement. We've talked about that so many times.
Yeah.
She goes on to say, is that volatility actually a problem, or do I need to just get over it?
That's a great question. So, like you said, we've talked about this one a lot as well. And very valid question, right? There's a lot going on. I would say, there is a lot more factors into this now as far as, you might be fine or you might really need to make some changes, because I do see a lot of people as you approach retirement, your investments and things like that should be more geared up towards getting ready to retire. Right. I think it's super important when you look at the 3 stages. We always talk about it. If you're not driving and you're just listening to this, draw it with your finger draw a line going up, right? That's your accumulation phase. That's when you're 30, 40 years old, you're working, everything's great. Market's going up and down all over the place, but as long as you got a job, you're probably doing fine, right? That's the growth phase, the accumulation phase. Then you have that preservation stage, which is typically around 50, 55 years old, where a lot of people say, Logan, I've done pretty well. I just don't want to lose this amount of money, right? I don't want to lose it. I want to make sure I have it because I might retire in 3 or 4 years. So that's the preservation stage. And then you have the distribution phase, which is coming down the mountain, where now we want to start turning those assets and things we've grown into income streams, right? Or being able to preserve that throughout your retirement. And so you are at that point right now where, at 55, you're getting closer to retirement. And I think it's super important to understand how much of your money you have at risk, as well as if something did happen in the markets, which, I always say I don't try to predict the markets because I could predict 2 things, right? Market will go up, market will go down. I have no idea when it's going to do that, right? There's a lot of indicators we could look at, but never a precise, exact scenario. So it's important to understand the markets do go up and down. So it's important to understand how are you invested based off your risk tolerance, and is there anything else we should be doing to get ourselves further diversified to gear up for retirement that's coming up?
Next question here is from Buddy in Cherry Valley. And Buddy says, I have to start taking RMDs next year. Should I take those withdrawals in monthly installments or one big withdrawal at the end of the year? Or does it even matter? First of all, I guess start by explaining what RMDs are and what the requirements are there.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, RMDs are one thing that a lot of people either are like, oh, yep, know what that is, or they're like, what did that guy just say, right? And one thing I would say, so what RMDs are is basically all of you guys out there that have a 401k or an IRA or things like that are called a qualified retirement plan. Typically, when you reach the age, now the new age is about 73, depending on how old you are, and you have to start taking a distribution out of your IRAs each year. Typically, it's like around 3.5%, and it goes up each year you have a birthday. There is no real advantage to taking them monthly or annually, right? So I have clients that take quarterly, monthly, annually. I've seen it pretty much every way, and a lot of it depends on how you want your income. I do have some clients where they're like, you know what, I don't need the money, and they take their RMDs every year for a trip, right? Maybe every time they get 10 grand or whatever it is, they take the family on a trip, right? That's a cool way to use it. So they say, you know what, every July we're going to take a trip. So they'll take it once a year and do that. I think that's a fun way to do things if you could swing it that way. Other clients use it to live off of, right? So if you're using it to live off of, I think monthly is probably the best option, where you get, $500 a month or whatever the amount is for the month. I think those are better. So I really think it depends on how you're taking your RMD and what it's for. But I think either of those ways are a good breakdown. There's really no benefit to one versus the other as far as the account value or things like that go in most cases.
All right. Good question, buddy. Thank you very much. And next question here is from Emily in Fontana. Emily says, my mom died about 8 months ago. I'm wrapping up everything in her estate. She has an IRA with about $150,000, a checking account with $100,000, and I'm about to sell her house for $350,000. How much should I expect to pay in taxes on all of this?
Yeah, great question, Emily. I'm sorry up to hear about the passing of your mom. I know that's a lot to go through. So what I would say here is definitely want to loop in a good tax professional, and we can work with them directly on this as well as if needed. But one of the big things I would look at here is the bank account, right? The checking account, typically, if that's left correctly, there shouldn't be any taxes due on that. If so, very, very, very minimal. The house, right? Typically, houses get stepped up value if titled correctly. So typically, that would be, if your mom bought it for $150,000, right now it's worth $350,000. Your new cost basis would be $350,000, right? So typically you would get that on a stepped up value, which typically would be pretty close to tax free depending on when her date of death was. And the big one that would typically want to take a look at is the IRA, right? The IRA of about $150,000. If that's a traditional IRA, that money is all taxable, right? So when we're looking at how to take that out, it depends on how much of the beneficiaries, how many beneficiaries there are. But if that's your portion or it's all left to you, we want to be very careful on what your income is, what your other tax liabilities are, and really making sure how we're going to take that out. You do have 10 years to take that money out, but we want to really get together and look at your tax structure and making sure we're getting that out correctly, because that is all taxable, like I said. So we want to make sure on all of those accounts, we want to run all these by your tax professional and really run some projections based off income and things like that, and making sure we're getting all of that done as efficient as possible, because it sounds like your mom left you behind a nice little nest egg there, and we want to make sure we do the best we can with it.
Logan, I'm always talking about a discovery visit that folks have with you. Walk us through that really quickly. How does that conversation go when you talk to somebody for the first time?
Yeah, so how we design our process, right, is we started the discovery meeting some years ago, and the reason we like it is because our process isn't like, hey, come in for one time and then become a client. That's not how we do things. We're very thought out, and a lot of the strategies and plans we do can be rather complex. And a lot of what we want to do is make things easy, right, on you guys and on us. And so what the discovery meeting is really just a chance for us to get to know each other. We sit down, we'll ask you a lot of questions about your financial situation, your assets, your goals, your concerns, all of those things that really pertain to your retirement plan. And then you get to ask a bunch of questions about us, right? You get to ask how long we've been around, what type of clients we work with, all that fun stuff that you'll probably have questions on. And then what we do is if we agree to go to the second meeting, after that meeting, we'll ask for all your statements and then start to build out the financial plan and go from there. The discovery meeting is really all about just getting to know each other, introducing you to the firm, and really showing you some of the value that our firm can bring to the table when constructing a well put together, customized retirement plan. And it allows you guys to really kind of sit down, relax, and just ask some questions, get to know us, and see, again, if we're a good fit to bring you to and through retirement. And a lot of you out there that have been coming in and for the discovery meeting have found that our process is very, very thorough, and I've really enjoyed a lot of what we're able to show you as far as your retirement plan. And a lot of you are enjoying actually having a actual customized, put together retirement plan, and really helping go through a lot of those ins and outs and questions you have about your plan, and really bringing those to life into your financial plan. So give us a call. Love to sit down, spend an hour with you. You can come into one of our offices. We could jump on a Zoom call, and whatever's easier for you, and making sure that we can get that conversation started and get you on your way to having a comprehensive retirement plan.
Okay, here's a very important number. Write this down if you haven't already. 888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-PLAN. That number is for Regari Financial. You can leave a message with your name and phone number, and you can set it up that way because you'll get a call back. And then you can have that 15-minute conversation or so, or however long it takes, a discovery visit with Logan Sadler, either via Zoom or in one of the convenient offices in Hemet or Redlands. Your choice. It's not going to cost you anything and not going to carry with it any kind of obligation at all. 888-823-PLAN. That's your number to call to make it happen. So important. Hey, listen, we appreciate your joining us today on the Financial Beat. Logan, it's been my pleasure to hang out with you once again.
Yeah, I always enjoy hanging out with you for this hour, as well as the audience, and thanks for stopping by, and we're going to be back again next week with another show.
Join us again next time when the Financial Beat will go on. Have a great week.
Regari Financial and Insurance Services, Inc. and BD Financial Group, Inc. are separate and independent entities. The information provided in this presentation is presented for educational and informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, tax, or legal advice, nor does it constitute an offer or solicitation to buy or sell any securities.